Hello everyone, we're back and today we're going to do some factoring by grouping when the leading coefficient does not equal 1. Now in this video we're going to go ahead and do it by the grouping method. So what do I mean when the leading coefficient does not equal 1? I'm saying that this right here is not equal to 1. This is a 3 and that's the leading coefficient. Over here we have a 10x squared, so that's 10. If it was just a 1 right here, the problem was a lot easier and we could just do what we showed in the other video by the x method. Over here there's an 8 and over here there's a 6. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. So with this method, the first thing we want to do is we want to find a product and sum, just like we did before, so that we have our x box here like we did before, and we need a product and a sum. But this time for the product, I'm going to take this and this, the leading coefficient and the constant, the very last coefficient, and I'm going to multiply these two to get my product of negative 15. So that's the product again. Now, that's the product. For the sum, we are going to take this value right there and end up with a sum of negative 14. So we go through the process that we did before. The whole idea of the grouping method is I want to find these two numbers that multiply to be negative 15 and add to be negative 14 to replace this. I'm rewriting this whole equation so that I can group the first two parts together and the second two parts together. So here's what I mean by that. Let's find two numbers that multiply to be negative 15 and add up to be negative 14. So when we do this, we'll start with the basics, 1 and 15. When I multiply, do I get 15? Yeah. I need to make one of these negative, so let's make the negative with the 15, because now if I say 1 times negative 15, I can multiply these to get the negative 15, and then I can add them together to get this sum of negative 14. So those are my factors. So here's what I'm going to do with those. These are going to replace that 14. So I will rewrite this equation as 3x squared plus 1x minus 15x. So these are replacing. Notice how these two are still equivalent to that value. Then minus the 5. The whole idea with this is that I want to group these first two terms together and these last two terms together. Now, take the first two that you group together, and what can you factor out? Well, I could factor out an x. And in this case, when I factor out an x, I am left with 3x plus 1. Now, in this second part, I can factor out a negative 5. And when I factor out a negative 5, I'm left with 3x plus 1. Remember, negative 5 times 1 gives me that negative 5. So notice how this and this match up. Since they match up, that's the common factor there. So if I take this out, 3x plus 1, I am left with this x minus 5 as my other factor, and that is the solution to this problem. So we've fully factored that. Now you can always check it by using the FOIL method, and when we go through the FOIL method, one step at a time, first outers, inners last, you will get that same answer that we started off with. So now let's go ahead and do this second problem. Again, we're going to take the leading coefficient and the constant. So let's do that in a different color so they stand out, the leading coefficient and the constant. We're going to multiply those, and that's going to be my product. This gives me 30. My sum is going to be this value right here, which is negative 11. Now, let's find two numbers that multiply to be 30 and add up to be 11. Well, you could start with 1 and 30, but you know that's not going to work. So let's try 2 and 15. Okay, 2 and 15. If I put 2 and 15, if I multiply those, does that work? Nope. Okay, I cannot add these to get the negative 11. So if we try 3 and 10, that's not going to work. How about 6 and 5? Well, if I made these both negative, I can multiply negative 6 and negative 5 to get a product of 30. And I can add negative 6 and negative 5 to get a sum of the negative 11. So that is what this negative 11 is going to be replaced with. So we rewrite this as 10x squared minus 6x minus 5x plus 3. Now the common question I'm asked is, does it matter if you put the 6x here and then the 5x there, or the 5x first and then the 6x? No, it doesn't matter. You could do it any way you want. It'll still come out to be the same answer in the end. So let's group the first two terms together, group the last two terms together, and see what we can factor out. On this first one, I can take out an x, and I can also take out a 2. So if I take out a 2 and an x, I'm left with 5x minus 3. On this one, nothing really to take out, but you want to take out this negative so that we matched up with this other positive 5x. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out a negative 1. And you're left with now positive 5x minus 3. Again, these must match. Notice how those two match? Because that's the last step. You're really taking that out. So now we take out this 5x minus 3, and you are left with this 2x minus 1, and that is this problem fully factored. Again, you can FOIL it out and double check, and you will get the right answer that we have there. All right, let's move on to the next one. Start from the beginning. We have a product and a sum. The product will be the 8 and the negative 3, which will give me negative 24. The sum will be this negative 10. So let's write that in there. So now let's go ahead and continue on and determine what two values will multiply to be negative 24, but then add up to be that negative 10. And I can go through my guess and check at it. You could try 2 and 12. In fact, that's the one that works. So 2 and 12. So if I made this notice I need a negative, so I'm going to go ahead and make the 12 a negative. So negative 12 and a 2. When I multiply these, I get negative 24. When I add them, I get negative 10. So we're going to rewrite this. Again, remember, this is replacing that 10x. So we will write this as 8x squared minus the 12x plus the 2x minus the 3. And I will go ahead and group these first two terms together, group these last two terms together, and let's see what I can factor out of these. In this first one, I can go ahead and factor out a 4, let's do it in this color, a 4 and an x, and I'm left with 2x minus 3. Nothing to factor out here, so I'm going to factor out a 1. And then this gives me that 2x minus 3. Again, these match. We're all good. So this becomes 2x minus 3 times 4x plus 1. And that is this problem fully factored. Again, you can check it by using the FOIL method. Let's move this up a little bit. Let's go ahead and scroll up just a teeny bit. Oh, it's not all scrolling, so it's okay. We'll work with it. We'll work with the space we have. Okay, so now for this next one. Again, we need a product of these two together, the 6 and the 20. That's going to be, when you multiply the 6 and the 20 together, you're going to get a negative 120. We need a sum of negative 7, so that negative 7 goes there. So now, this one is tough to find the two factors. You could try 10 and 12. There's so many things that you can multiply to get 120. So this is going to take some guess and checking. If you go ahead and try 10 and 12, as we said, these will multiply, but you can't get that sum. If you try 2 and 60, they will multiply. You can get them to equal negative 120 with a negative on one or the other, but you can't get that sum. It's going to end up being 15 and 8. You can keep guessing at different values, but I'll go ahead and tell you that it's 15 and 8. And that's the hardest part probably for this problem, is keep listing all the ones that you have to use. It's just trial and error, guess and check, however you want to call it, but that's where you end up. Now, we need this 15 to be a negative, and then that 8 will be positive. These multiply to give me 120. These add to give me negative 7. So again, we are replacing this with those two values. So 6x squared minus 15x plus 8 minus the 20. And let's group the first two together. Let's group the last two together. Oops, I need an x here. Forgot to write my x in. And let's see what we can factor out. On this first one, I can factor out a 3x, and I'm left with 2x minus 5. On the next one, I can factor out a 4, and I'm left with that 2x minus 5. So notice these are both in common. We're good, we're golden, so now we can take that out. So that's the 2x minus 5, and I have that left over of the 3x plus 4. Again, that is fully factored, and that is the solution. Foil it out to double check it. Works out. We're all good. That's the factor by grouping method. There are other methods. Take a look at the videos the other videos I have posted. You'll see different methods besides grouping. Thanks again for watching.